Hi guys, it's Ray here from City Fan TV, and we've got a good friend of the channel in the house today. We've got Mac, who is a City fan since the Mancini days, about 8 to 9 years. He's a student in Hong Kong at the moment, and he's a football writer who likes the technical side of the game. He's contributed as a football analyst to Total Analysis, the website, and to Barca Times. How you doing, Mac?
Yeah, hi Ray, I'm good.
Good to hear,
Thank
mate.
you for having me.
Uh,
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Always a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure. And what got me interested in Mac's writing, someone sent me an article of his, and it was pages and pages and pages and pages long. It was in an in-depth article, and if you write an in-depth article, for several pages long about an established star, you can see where you can get information from and background and stuff. But when you're writing it about a 17-year-old kid, as he was then, you think, wow, that it takes something a little bit special. And the person that Mac was writing about was a kid called Yan Couto, who I'm sure you've probably heard about now, because he's a Brazilian right back who City bought when he was 17. He's been training this week with the seniors. He's 18 years old now. He couldn't come to Europe until he was 18. He's 5'6" tall. That's 1 meter 68. And the reason why a lot of people are excited about him, he was the Under-17 World Cup with Brazil. He basically helped them to get to the final and win the competition. He had a couple of really important assists. He was heavily linked with some big clubs like Barcelona, but he agreed a 5-year contract with City starting on the 1st of July. Once he'd just turned 18 by then. So he's a very exciting talent. The issue is, at the moment, he's not played any senior league games, and City paid a reasonable amount of money for him. So honestly, I think if I press the button and let Matt go, he can talk for 20 minutes about Yan Couto. But we're going to have to keep it briefer than that. But Mac, does Yan Couto excite you, and how much does he excite you?
I think it's quite exciting because I think Brazilian media is referring to Yan Couto as the next Dani Alves. And I think there's a lot of similarities between these two players. I will start from the philosophy of the club, Manchester City, because everyone knows we play attacking football, and we are not going to keep every defenders on the defensive line. The fullbacks have to push higher, join the attack by any means, no matter it was inverted wingbacks or the overlapping fullbacks. And one very, very sharp attribute of Yan Couto is his ability to attack the flanks and his pace to attack the goal. This is why I think this is the most attractive reason that City want to bring him to the team, because he has got the attacking attributes and a very, very good body, physical superiority, if you count that. And the first impression of this player, I think he's a very, very quick player. But if you, as you have said, Yan Couto does not have very lots of official game appearances. He's a bit inexperienced, especially he's never featured in the Brazilian Serie A. And for Yan Couto, this player is very interesting to watch because the maturity of his crosses is great, very, very great. And it's a bit, maybe you can see like a bit of Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of the crossing, because he's very good at curving his crosses, whipping his crosses, and finding the right targets. For example, you have 3 players into the box, he can pick you the best options in the box. And this is a very good attribute, and especially you have seen maybe the crossing from Kyle Walker is, I think it's not the best, and maybe João Cancelo as well. And for Yan Couto, if you want to have some counter-attack opportunities, you can count on Couto as well, because he is very comfortable in dribbling the ball forward, carrying the ball forward, and his pace is very, very quick. And yeah, he's just like very lots of right attacking, right fullback at City.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I think this is the result of City sending several scouts in the U17 World Cup, and they got him. And I heard some media have said Pep even called him to invite him to come to City, and
Yeah.
he's a very attractive youngster. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's what I'd heard, that Pep had made that phone call directly to Yan Couto, and that was what sealed the deal. You know, Barcelona were interested, and you would normally expect a kid from South America, if one of the two Spanish giants are interested, that's where you go.
Yeah.
Or you might take a stepping stone and go to the Portuguese league. Sometimes you can get a Portuguese passport. That's on offer as well, and use that to move around in Europe. We've seen that many times with players, and that's what they've done. And he's really exciting. Like you say, I remember hearing Tim Vickery on the radio, another obviously a big South American football talker and writer, talking about Yan Couto in very excited terms. And that under-17 World Cup, I think, I'm trying to remember which players. If we've got Yan Couto from there. We've got a kid called a Brazilian kid called Diego Rosa. I think, was he involved there? I think 2 of the 3 Brazilians we were looking at were involved there. And there's a kid called Rocky. I think that's his surname, Rocky, not as in Marciano or Bilbao. He's not a fighter. But City are very interested in these young Brazilian stars or stars of the future. The one thing about Couto is that I've noticed, obviously, he played in that under-17 World Cup. He stepped up. When it mattered, when Brazil were in trouble, this kid kept his head, he was cool, and he made the decisive moments for Brazil. Now, people will say he's only 17 years old, he's playing with kids. Yeah, I understand that. But he was excelling with the kids, which gives me confidence that he can step up. And he seems to have the self-belief, because, you know, Situ said apparently that he would come and train with the players. He's doing that. He's got that self-belief. He believes he can make it. And sometimes mentality is half the battle.
Yeah, because according to some news, City originally planned to send him out on loan immediately. But the kid said, Couto have said, no, I want to come to City for training for a while, at least at the preseason stages, to let Pep to see my quality. And that's why he's staying at Manchester right now. I like the mentality of this player, especially as you have mentioned in the knockout stages of the U17 World Cup. He is a very important player of Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, because obviously, if it's possible, obviously our league starts, other leagues will start before the transfer window closes. So it's possible, and we're not sure about the work permit situation. We've tried to clarify that, trying to find out more information, but it's very difficult for me to understand how he could play at City without fulfilling the points criteria for a work permit. We saw with Douglas Luiz, who was an older player, a little bit more experienced. Twice we tried at City for a work permit, but he couldn't get a work permit because he didn't have sufficient points, which is why he went to Villa, because he was going to be more of an important player to Villa. He was going to play more games. He was costing them more. And he, by virtue of all these things, he got the points to get in at Villa. And I personally can't see how Yan Couto gets in at City. I don't know how he's here. Maybe he's on a temporary visa or something. I don't know how it works. But it could be that we keep him training with the boys for a month until late September, and then loan him out somewhere else, which is good for his career at City. But it's tough if you go somewhere else and they've already started the league and you've not done pre-season with them, and you turn up. Sometimes it's difficult to get in the side. But what other attributes can you see? We talked about his pace. And City are looking at. I've seen they were talked about a kid in France playing for Angers called Nuri, Ryan Nuri. He was another very, very similar player. So, City aren't going to change their style. They want the fast wing fullbacks who basically play as wingers when they're needed. So, what else can you tell us about Yan Couto? That that makes you excited, the prospect of him having a career at City?
I think also the defensive side of his game, because of course, if you are talking about his physical presence, yes, he is quick, but he's not the most muscular player on the pitch, of course, and he's just 1.69 meters only. Maybe you can record a similar player at City, Pablo Maffeo. Yeah, and for Yan Couto, I think his pace or his agility or footsteps has provided him a very very strong skill set when defending. When he's encountering some very technical wingers in the knockout stages in the World Cup, and he's very calm. He did not panic, go challenge, and he just keep his ground and try to defend those 1v1 situation. And I think this is a very, very important attribute because he is going to face good wingers anyway in his future career. And the most important is how to deal with these wingers because it's a different position, but similar cases. A lot of people criticize Nicolas Otamendi because he's going to challenge the player every time he go and dive in the tackles, he failed, and the player get past him. And I think it's unnecessary to do that because if you are calm enough, you can just delay him to force him make a decision, keep him in your pocket. And I think Couto has got that potential to be a very, very good defender as well. So he's a very good attacker, but in terms of defending, he's there as well. So this is why I'm very excited on this player.
Yeah, I mean, I think finally, it's okay. We're all sometimes FIFA football managers on the computer or whatever, and we want to see how people develop. And it's very hard because he just turned 18 years old. He hasn't played senior games. You know, it's a very, very early stage in his career. So it's really silly to try and make that leap as to where he can get to. But I'm going to go there. I'm going to ask you. Yes, we haven't seen a lot of him, but from what you have seen, from the analysis you've done, from the games you've watched in the Under-17 World Cup, and the feeling you get, I'm not worried about the comparisons with Daniela's, but the feelings you get. How long do you think before this kid, forgetting the work permit issues, how long before do you think this kid could actually have a chance, if his progression carries on the way it is, to challenge someone like Kyle Walker? Do you think in the next, for argument's sake, next 2 or 3 years, he could be in a position to knock on the door of starting for City?
I think at least not for the next few years, because especially under the Pep, because if you know, Phil Foden is also a very, very talented player, but he has not get a lot of chances until this year. And I think for Couto, he has to make the breakthrough, maybe 2 breakthrough I briefly mentioned here, if he wants to going to become a world-class player. The first, he has to break from the youth level to the senior level, the first team level of football. This is the first step. And when he adapts at the first team level, he has to show he can consistently provide a performance week by week. And this is the most important. And start from that. If you can see him playing well for consecutive, for maybe months and months, then he is ready for there. And I think this process required a lot of hard work and experiences, and especially for those South American players, he has to adapt into a new league, and more important, the lifestyle, because I think the food they eat or maybe the diets they have is very different from the requirement from City. I remember Gabriel Jesus also changed his diets because it's a bit unhealthy if you are eating in that way. And for a top athlete, he have to. There are lots of things to control, and the diet is one of them. So there's a lot of work for Yan Couto to do before getting into the first team level regularly. But maybe if Pep is keeping him in the team, maybe you can see him playing in the Carabao Cup in the maybe years later, because just like Pablo Maffeo, he also has his chances to play. And if his mentality or his eager to success is there, I think he can make it. Yeah. Because he has got the potential and the quality.
Yeah, you talk about diet. I just remember taking my staff many years ago to a big Brazilian restaurant in Manchester, and I can guarantee the diet, the food that they were serving up there, you couldn't make it as a professional footballer eating that
Yeah.
that stuff. So no, it's very interesting. I mean, I personally think he needs a couple of seasons on loan.
Maybe Girona or
Well, this is my next question. I think the final question here is going to be: I think he needs 2 seasons on loan to show that he can do it, not just once, like you say, but twice, to show he's consistent, to show he's developing, to show he deserves to be fighting at City for the right back slot. I have no problem somebody at 20, 21 years old to be able to do that because if you look around, people like Trent, he came through at a young age. If you're good enough, you'll get the chances and you'll get the opportunity. The question is then, where would he go? Would you send him? The problem is, I don't want to send him to a too low a league because maybe the challenge isn't there. But he's only 18 years old. You know, I'm just looking at City sister clubs. Obviously, you've got Lommel-SK in Belgium. I feel that's a bit too low, but he will have a quieter life there as well. I mean, it's a very small town, Lommel, so that'll be different. You could look at. I was just thinking of Vincent Kompany Anderlecht, but I don't think they'd take him simply because he's too big a risk. Anderlecht have had enough problems of their own last season, and Vincent, you can't take a risk with a kid like that as your first team. So for me, it's probably not a top league. Maybe you could look at Troyes, the French club that City have just bought. Maybe you could look at Girona. That just seems to be a natural fit, just because it's it's a bit sunnier over there as well, and the lifestyle is going to be probably more similar to what he was used to in Brazil. The language, although they do speak a different language, there are obviously some similarities. And obviously a lot of Portuguese players and Brazilian players over there. I'm just trying to think where else could he go. I don't think there's anywhere else. I think going into somewhere like the Championship in England might be too hard for him in the first
I
instance.
think there are some clubs came to my mind when you speak about that, and yeah, Girona is one of them because another club that came to my mind is Flamengo in Brazil, the top league. Because I'm saying this club because if you know the manager is now Dominic Torrens.
Yeah.
Very very Pep style manager, and he is one of our assistant coach years ago. And if you want to learn the stuff of Pep, he will. I think this is one of the destination. But I think Girona is very possible as well because he has to learn to adapt in Europe.
Yeah.
European football, no matter the weather, the lifestyle, everything. More probably, I think, Girona is one of them because Douglas Luiz, before he make his name in the Premier League at Villa, he also played in Girona, and I think Girona is a good destination. And apart from Girona, I think Portugal, because I think City have some connections there. And another very talented player, Pedro Porro, also joined Sporting Lisbon. I think weeks ago. So I
was going to say obviously Portugal because the language, the lifestyle, even more so the getting into Europe that way. I'll throw a wild card out, but there is the option of New York City FC where Nick Cushing is the manager. He was at City for I think 8 years. He's a women's team manager, and he's there now. And I think Angelino. Look at Angelino's path. He spent time in New York City FC. Jack Harrison was at New York City FC before he went. He's a City player. Before he went to Leeds on loan. And Angelino, he moved around a little bit. NEC Breda. I think he was at Girona as well. So, but he had that stint at New York City. So you could argue that's an easy league to get into. So, but it's going to be really exciting to see what happens with Yan Couto, such a young player with such huge potential ahead of him, and so many City fans are excited to see what will become of him. I've got to say once again, Mac, it's a huge thank you to you for this detailed analysis of a City player. It's second to none. The level of depth you go into, and you give us all. The thing is, you give us these little, what we say, tidbits of information that you just don't get from general sources. So this detailed analysis, and you can see why the things you do for Total Analysis and Barter Times, why you are a very high in demand person. So a massive thank you for this again.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for having me. Yeah.